and give you or share a little bit about our vision about how we see the digital buying cycle in general. So maybe I could just start with a show of hands. Who in the room, and we're a slightly smaller audience, so I think we can have some more interaction. Who in the room is coming from a destination? A few of you, yeah, okay, that's good. And how many of you represent business community? And how many of you are students? Nobody. Okay, great. So we're all professionals. Good. So we all know what we're talking about here when it comes to digital and the importance of engaging your visitors. And I guess you all know the impact that mobile is having on your business day to day. So first thing first, I will just introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name's Nick. I found the Digital Tourism Think Tank back in 2012. And we started just by working with destinations, and we've really extended into the business community too, talking about the importance of digital and promoting digital thought leadership. On stage with me is Ramona Wagner, coming not from Germany today, but she's originally German, and she's our programs director, and she's been looking at all of the research and doing a lot of digital analysis of what's happening in the industry. And we're going to feed some of those insights into what we share with you today. I just want to say one other thing. What we're going to do is we're going to do this in two parts. So we're going to share how we see the visitor buying cycle changing. And we've discussed this a fair amount, I think it's fair to say. Wouldn't you say, Ramona? Yeah. And we're also then going to go on to some research that we conducted in the summer, which is actually very, very interesting. We did it in central London to understand how young people look at mobile and how mobile influences and impacts what they do on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to kick off. I think, first of all, just to say, perhaps Ramona wants to just share a little bit about the world tour that we've been on, and also a word of thanks to our main partner, TripAdvisor.
Yeah, I think in the first part of this year, I think our colleague Nick has been on the road. Luckily, most of us in the team did not have to go on to the full tour. He has been touring the Middle East and also Africa, and also a lot around Europe. And last week we had quite a busy week as well. We went to Czech and then followed by Spain, and actually Nick went to Italy as well. So we're touring all around the world, and hopefully we will see you every now and again later this year, and also hopefully next year.
If we didn't come to your destination, just let us know and we'll make a stop next year. But really, all of the insights and all of the case studies you see, we build our knowledge from going and seeing what other destinations are doing. And I think it's what we know as destination digital gurus, if you like, to a certain extent, is what we learn is learning from what others do. And actually, that's what we try and do. We try and create a platform for everybody in the industry to exchange their own experience and knowledge. We actually have a really interesting project coming up. We're doing it with the European Commission. And I promise after this we'll get into our own vision. But we're doing a series of webinars for SMEs in the tourism industry. So who in the room would consider themselves running or working for an SME? Okay, quite a few of you. So I just want to tell you about these because I think you'll find these really interesting. We're going to do some announcements about it in the coming weeks. But these are essentially going to be live events. We're going to get together a series of experts, panelists, and also interviews to discuss and look at all the different issues that are being faced by businesses. So we have this very nice person who's going to be joining us, Laura Bougelance. Perhaps, Ramona, you want to just share a bit about what she does?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Laura is that we came across her a couple of months ago, and she's just about to start her own business, and she's really keen to learn all about digital and to get to know how she can market her business to the World Wide Web as well, and to her specific niche audiences, because she's starting up sort of a yoga business, which is very interesting. So over the course of the 6 different webinars, we'll actually be talking with her and talking through different topics in digital, such as how do you get started on social media, what should you watch out for, how do you then manage your online reputation, all of that. How is today's visitor changing? How is the visitor behavior changing? All of that. And at every point, we find it quite interesting to bring Laura in so she can also share her experience. Because, of course, she will start her business and she will think about all of the different topics and she will start off all of the different things. So it should be very, very interesting to also hear from another business who might not be sort of at the cutting edge of everything, who might not know everything yet.
So this will be a really good series, and we're effectively going to mentor her as she grows her business completely from scratch. I think this will be a very interesting journey for us. And those webinars will be completely free, and you'll be able to connect to them live on many different sites. We'll share that with you, or you'll be able to find out more on it on our site. So let's kick off with today's session and share with you, first of all, how we've been looking at the digital visitor buying cycle. I think maybe just to start with, who in the room has an iPhone 6? There was almost one left here from the last session, so I thought I got lucky, but unfortunately not. So we know when we see technology like this released and launched over and over again, every single year, new devices are launched, which just push the boundaries of technology further and further and further. More and more we're seeing the cameras advance, but also we're seeing so many different measurements inside the devices which look at every single thing we do. And what we can see is that technology is becoming really, really personal as well. I guess you all know about the Apple Watch, which probably everybody's going to be buying for Valentine's Day next year. It allows you to send your heartbeat to your loved one, and amongst lots of other things, such as creating an iMessage, answering a FaceTime call, and everything you imagine. And of course, Apple are not the first ones to do a watch, but you can probably guess if they're going to do it, then everybody else will follow, and it will become a really big thing. So we know when we see technology evolving like this, we know that it's getting very, very personal, and it will change how we market our businesses and our destinations. And the challenge for you guys is to think about how to actually embrace this change, how to allow this change not to completely divert what you do on a day-to-day business, but actually embrace innovation and make it work for you. So I don't need to share with you what this is. This is two lovely people, in love, I hope, sharing their holiday photos on a tablet device. And we can see from thousands and thousands of different reports that images, very, very powerful, authentic images, are really selling your destination. The last session, we heard about the importance of storytelling. So we heard about the importance of images not only created by yourselves as businesses or destinations, but also created by your visitors and your ambassadors and people who are really passionate about your destination. So these statistics I don't need to tell you. What's really changing now, a lot thanks to technology and a lot thanks to connectivity, is the importance of video. Just in the last 12 months, there's been a 118% increase in online video consumption. That's a really, really, really huge figure when you think about it. And this is really driven by two things. It's driven by the number one sites on the web, which is Google in general, but really what's driving that is YouTube, and also Facebook, people sharing videos with their friends through social media. But more than that, it's being driven by technology and the fact that everybody now has a camera in their pocket and they're sharing all of their experiences. What I find really interesting is that when we were talking about the importance of user-generated content and sharing just a few years ago, we were always talking about the really small percentage that love your destination or care about your brand and how to engage those people. So we would say, well, if you look at the web, you have so many people looking at your destination, and they are influenced by this small number of people who share thoughts and share comments. But what we see in just a very short period of time is that picture has completely changed. So according to this last Google Traveler report, that has increased to 48% of business travelers who are now sharing videos online. So it's a completely different picture today. People, you're no longer a geek who just loves technology and loves sharing things to be sharing online. Every single person is doing it. Business travelers in particular, because they're away from their loved ones, they're away from their family, and they want to share that. It's how people stay in touch. But that is very powerful, and that is what's actually driving awareness about your business. Now, there's so many different channels where that content ends up, and the challenge for you guys is how to track all of that, how to somehow try and maybe not control it, but at least organize it so it works for you. And this is what we've been looking at. I guess it's not easy, otherwise we wouldn't still be in this business. But we try and look at it, I guess, in a very simple way. So does everyone know that circle? Everybody shows it to you. Google show it to you. The business down the road shows it to you. That visitor buying cycle, where you start from awareness and you end up at sharing. Well, we looked at that and we just thought we'd take out half the stages because, you've seen it again and again. We unashamedly also put it around our logo, so sorry about that. But let's just look at the key stages. So dreaming, planning, booking, and sharing. And let's have a look at how we think this travel cycle is changing. So perhaps, Ramona, you want to just dive into some of these key differences that we're seeing today at each stage.
Well, I think over the last sort of couple of years, we've really seen that storytelling is really emerging. Although for many it's really a buzzword, but in the last panel we really heard that it's really stories that sell your destination and your business, and you want to hear from other people about their experiences, their stories when they visited a destination, and that's very, very, very inspiring. We also have lots of suggestions, of course, from TripAdvisor, and now we see many, many destinations and tourism business integrating TripAdvisor reviews in their site, because the truth is, if your visitors don't find TripAdvisor reviews or any reviews on your own website, then they will just go out of your website and will go to where they can find them, either on their social media or
and that's also the case for a hotel, isn't it? And I think this is sometimes, hotels are sometimes embrace TripAdvisor, they love it, they think it's great, and sometimes fearful because they're still working around the idea that people can share their experiences online. But what we've seen is that those businesses which integrate TripAdvisor, as you were saying, they win because the consumers then have the confidence when they're on that hotel's website to book that because of what others see. And if they don't have that information, whether the reviews are good or bad, they need to look somewhere else, and they will probably end up booking somewhere else as well. So this is why it's really important at that stage. The hashtag.
Yeah, well, hashtag and moments are so important, and I think for many tourism business and destinations, they're just coming about to use different hashtags, and not just providing hashtags and engaging people, but also making them share all of the moments, everything they have experienced, because that's really, really important. And now what we've seen is that a lot of destinations and tourism business are actually moving on to sort of measuring their digital footprint, also based on sort of hashtags and lots of images.
How far the spread of content goes.
And I think that's really where the future is going to be moving. It doesn't matter how many visitors you have to your website. It's so important that you measure your digital footprint, that you know what sort of word is out there about your business and your tourism destination.
So we sum all the changes up also about the need to think about the experience. When you're selling your business or your destination, you're thinking about the experience that you create or that you could create or that somebody could have when they come to your destination. If I'm a couple in love, I might come to your business and want something that's romantic, to spend a romantic weekend. And you have to communicate how your business can fill that picture, can fill that dream. And it's really about the experience that you create online where you're going to be successful in doing that. And so when we look at this dreaming stage, this awareness stage, it's really important to think about your content and how it can be really engaging. I think everybody who was in the last session was really inspired by the video that Cash shared. And this is exactly the kind of content that's very, very powerful because it draws you in and it starts to fulfill the kind of ideas that you may have about the destination or the business. And we're also seeing a huge trend towards immersive campaigns. I think Ramona will probably remember the Tourism Melbourne campaign, where they actually got people to tell their video team who had cameras attached to their head where to go. So it was very, very interactive. I wouldn't like to be those people because God knows where they sent them.
And I think for the destination itself, it's a little bit of a sort of a health and safety threat. I think sending remote control tourists around the city, I think there was a lot probably of planning going into this. So it's probably not as easy, and we should probably not recommend anybody in this room going out, sticking a GoPro on top of somebody's head and letting them like walk around their tourism.
If they were actually remote controlled, that would be uncomfortable. And then this crowdsourcing. So what we mean by crowdsourcing is getting your customers, getting your ambassadors engaged with what you're doing and getting them to do the work for you. And this is where if you get it right and you engage them in the right way, you can actually get some really good wins, really a lot of content without actually going out and creating all of it yourself. So crowdsourcing what you do. We're seeing this huge trend towards crowdsourcing, not just in marketing places, but in every single aspect of the whole the whole world, actually. We see businesses crowdsource, we see new city projects crowdsource, and of course we see marketing destinations as a crowdsourced approach. And hashtag is really helping that. Just on some of the other stages, and you will see how this all goes towards mobile. If you're sitting here thinking, well, what's this got to do with mobile? That's the next point. Having a really, we say a digital Swiss Army knife is a really sound approach to looking at where you can provide the practical information. So something simple, such as a mobile optimized screen for your business. Think about what they need. What would they have if they were asked to create a digital Swiss Army knife? Probably the first thing they would ask for is opening times. So unfortunately, sometimes you have to think about your customers before your own marketing goals. And this is really important to balance the two and not only go after what you want to do as a business, because otherwise your customers won't be satisfied. Well, I think those who are in the e-commerce world know how important it is to take out all the stages and make the booking process as quick and as simple as possible. And I quote this because I loved it. I heard it on the BBC. Internet is a human right. I think this is something that's being debated very seriously in certain circles. I don't care whether it is or not, but what I can tell you is that for tourists, they certainly think it is. And there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to get online. If you think, well, okay, we provide Wi-Fi, ask yourself, is it easy to get onto your Wi-Fi? Because then that's the next step. If you have a visitor coming from the United States, and the only way they can get onto your free Wi-Fi is to hand over so many details and go through so many screens, and most Wi-Fis, surprisingly, are not mobile optimized either when you log in, then they probably will just give up. So you're still not providing Wi-Fi. You need to think about it and actually put yourself in the shoes of your customer.
And interestingly, I think, because we were in the Czech Republic last week, we went there and had our 4G modem with us and thought, okay, we're just gonna roam. We're just gonna pay, whatever it takes so we can stay connected. And we went there, and of course in the airport you have Wi-Fi. Then we went on this really nice train which had really good Wi-Fi, which was completely free. So we just wrote lots of emails. The hotel had really good Wi-Fi, and also taxis in Prague had good Wi-Fi. So you have a completely connected experience. And we actually did not expect that. So we actually thought Czech tourism and Prague itself, they should really promote that as a selling point, because if you can be 100% connected, other travelers, they want to go there. Of course, they will share their experience. That drives more visitors there, and it's just an ongoing circle. So that's really important. So if you have Wi-Fi, if there are places where people can connect, you should definitely promote it. You should definitely make visitors use them.
Having this, there's also about the product. And, if we look back at textbooks on marketing, people will talk about 4 Ps of marketing. I think people growing up today have no idea what that's all about. But there are some key principles there, and one is your product and making sure your product is good. You're going to have trouble marketing something that's fundamentally flawed. And if you look at a whole destination, and our visit to the Czech Republic, which was very digital and online, that was overall a good product experience. And actually, it means that the experiences we shared as ambassadors were very positive experiences, which could have been the complete opposite. So we're going to, I think this is very clear. What we're saying here is that mobile is important at every single stage in the buying cycle, and it's not just at that in-trip stage. Even when it comes to engaging people and creating awareness, mobile is so important. So we're going to touch on that in just a second and show you some examples. First of all, here's a graph or a map from 2013, so it's already out of date, but it's just to give you a snapshot at some of the numbers, and also just to show you that there are quite strong regional and global differences when it comes to mobile. So if you're thinking about engaging your visitors, you need to think about where your visitors are coming from first. Personally, I'm a marketeer, so I have an iOS device. Statistically, that's most likely to happen. But if I'm not reaching the same people as me, if I'm reaching a completely different audience, I need to think about what they're using. Probably just to highlight one figure here, the South Africa, 19% of South Africans own smartphones. That seems very, very low compared to other markets. And actually, I didn't believe it until I went there, and then I realized, it's actually correct. people in South Africa are more inclined to be using BlackBerry devices. So that's something that if you're targeting that market, it's good to know that, because the experience that they have with your mobile site might be quite different, and you need to understand how that difference will transcend. On the other hand, Asian markets are just booming, and South Korea, for example, in the 80s, really embracing all the changes and the first to adopt everything. And we certainly will see when we look at mobile commerce, I think the Asian markets adopting that first. So it is important to understand the differences. Also, when it comes to the different platforms, you have to also consider, you have this choice all the time, Android or iOS. And this graph shows the dominance of the different platforms around the world. So you can see here, the light-colored one is Apple, iOS, and the dark green is Android. So probably that's not a surprise. That was also 2013, so that's probably probably more towards the Android. But what's driving this huge dominance of Android is a lot of lower-end phones coming into the market. So there's a lot of cheap devices flooding the market, which are getting people on the smartphone train, and they're all using Android. So it's not as simple as, okay, 90% of people in this market are using Android, only 10% are using iOS, so I will actually program for Android. You also have to think, are those 10% that are using iOS the market that I want to reach? If you look into the data, you'll see that actually that's quite likely the case. They're more affluent, more likely to spend more in the kind of industries which are going to be the type to travel and visit your destination. So it's really important to look at the data, look at the trends, and make your decisions in terms of where to put your investment. Everybody's short of money these days. Even if they have millions to spend, they feel they're short of money. So you need to be really focused and targeted in terms of where you actually put your money and make sure you don't waste it. These four graphs show you a bit of the picture of where things are today. So feature phones, that is phones that are internet enabled, they have a color screen, and they do some functions, maybe even apps, but they're not the same as Android and OS. They're not fully fledged smartphones. These are dominant in the BRIC markets. And so you really, that's a key thing to understand if you're thinking China is an interesting market, or Brazil is an interesting market, and I would like to really target people in that space. In the case where you have feature phones, you have to think about how your website will optimize on that and make sure that that's, perhaps sometimes you settle for the lowest common denominator to make it a good experience. So we're going to go into each stage of this visitor cycle and look at a few different case studies and examples that we've pulled up that we think are quite interesting. So the first thing is, is there anyone from Facebook in the room? I always have to check this because could go wrong. So nobody from Facebook, that's good. Does anybody feel what this phrase means? Just put your hand up if you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay, you're all putting your money into social media. And I think when we first looked at social media, we thought, okay, it's free. Everyone thought it. You know, we're all guilty of it. It's free marketing. It's a free community. And we know that's not the case. And we see that Facebook, as one example, has changed beyond all belief in terms of the market that's on Facebook, but also how we engage with people. And it's become more and more expensive. We see that organic reach just declining and declining and declining. It's being driven by mobile. Before we look at mobile, I just want to share with you what I was discussing with someone yesterday. And this was the last really good app that I remember seeing on Facebook. Does anyone know this? Send your Facebook page to Cape Town. It's actually an app where you can add it to your profile, and then it will send your page on holiday. You don't need to do a thing, and it will go all over Cape Town and share the experience. And this is really, really good. But most people now are not looking, I think almost nobody is looking at Facebook apps as something that they would seriously consider in their marketing mix, because people want to put all of their money into reach and actually promoting the content that they're creating. The other reason for that is that Facebook as a desktop experience is no longer so important. It's all about mobile, and it's the mobile experience which is driving the change that we see today on Facebook, both in the markets, but also in how people interact and engage. If you do get a chance, though, I still would check this out, because it's really interesting. So we see Facebook looking at mobile and saying, well, you know, it's really important to also embrace that as a business. And so the acquisition of Instagram into Facebook is something that is not insignificant. They recognize mobile as something that's really important. And they also recognize the importance of niche interests being shared through the mobile platform, through very personal interactions. Well, personally, a year ago, I probably looked at it and I thought, well, it's just people photographing their exercise regime, taking pictures of their food and sharing it. But we know it's a lot more than that. Somebody told me just last week about a great photographer on Instagram, and we're now calling them Instagrammers or photographers, who takes pictures of different underground networks around the world in really artistic ways. And they actually have a very, very big following. And so you see quite unusual things coming out of Instagram, which are very, very niche verticals. But it may well be that as a business or as a destination, those niche interests actually work really well. And so that audience might be really quite interesting for you to engage with. We also see new trends developing all the time. Actually, Ramona was raving about Hyperlapse. I ignored it. But the Hyperlapse trend is something that everyone is doing now. The fact that Apple actually released it as a feature now in their camera probably tells us everything. And what I want to show you here is that, you know, for destinations who are really smart and looking at the trends, they're looking at what consumers are interested in and seeing, well, either can we engage directly with that, or can we somehow get on the train and copy the style in a way that would be powerful for our destination. So this is I've turned the sound down so I can continue telling you about it. This is a video produced by the Catalan Tourist Board, and it actually is shot in this hyperlapse style approach. They actually did not ask users to do it. They did actually hire a professional photographer, and they had literally thousands and thousands of photographs stitched together, and it's a series of still photos. It's not a video. And they create this very powerful effect. The reason they did this was because they saw what consumers were interested in. They saw the rise of something like hyperlapse, and the people were getting excited about it in a social way. And they thought, well, this would actually be very powerful content to promote our destination, and people will really like it. So they did a brilliant job. Now, Snapchat. Who in the room has a Snapchat account? Okay. So you're going to regret that, because I may ask you to explain what the phenomenon is. But as you're all the way at the back, I'll save you from that. So Snapchat. Who has never heard of Snapchat? Don't be shy. Great. Okay. I think there's probably a few more of you. So good, because I hadn't heard, well, I had heard of Snapchat, but I certainly didn't take it seriously just a few weeks ago. And looking into it, the figures are just incredible. So 70% of US college students, 18 to 24, are using this channel daily. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's an application, a social network, if you like, on your mobile phone, where you can communicate with your peers through a kind of instant messaging, and the content deletes itself after 10 seconds. Now, for me, that doesn't seem to make any sense as a brand why or how you would possibly think of engaging with a content or a community where all of your content just disappears. It's absolutely crazy. But there are a few good examples. Our youngest team member actually had to dig them up because we couldn't get our head around it. And he found some great examples of how they used opportunities, instant opportunities, such as the Super Bowl in the US, and pushing brands out in a very instant way, which all disappears, but it creates a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement. So if you're really targeting this group, and that's quite a specific audience. But if you are targeting these college students, perhaps you work in a youth market and you're promoting backpacking trips around Europe, there may be some really interesting opportunities there. And if not, you may at least get some good PR for having jumped onto something that was quite new and innovative. The comparative figure is also quite astounding. The same age group is posting to Facebook. Only 11% is posting to Facebook every day. That's a really big change. And the reason I put this here, particularly, so there we go. We've been, just to make the point, that we've been creating really powerful content up until now. And now we seem to be looking towards a trend which may be about deleting content and completely meaningless content. But the point here is that this change is really taking place because of mobile. Because mobile is very personal, and it's very much a social engagement. And I think, who in the room is on Path? Nobody knows Path? Yes, there you go. I'm always looking for my Path fans, because I love Path, but it seems that less and less people use it. But Path is a private messaging platform. It's very much like Facebook, but only on mobile and only with 5 friends. And this is the trend that we're seeing. People are moving more and more towards personal communication, getting the brands out. They want a brand-free experience on the whole, and really focusing on the one-to-one conversations that they have. And so if we look at just going back to the social mix, we've heard a bit about some of the work that Cash has been doing with South Africa, really inspiring, using hashtags to organize social content in a really great way, and also sending people on Insta walks and blog trips. So really creating loads and loads of content, thanks to mobile, as it happens on the spot. You can do that with ambassadors, bloggers, or you can also do it with your own visitors who are really, really good ambassadors for your destination. The difference is that they can share that content there and then while they're in your business, and not when they get home. So that visitor buying cycle, where the sharing part was always at the end, that's now moved right to the middle. Long format content. I think for those of you who saw the video, you'll see that actually what tablet devices have done, and mobile to a lesser extent, has created a space where quite heavy content is now very, very much welcomed and accepted. And this is something that we would never have done a few years ago. You would never have posted a video which took 5 or 8 or even 10 minutes because you would have said, no way, your customers are not going to engage. They're not going to take that time to sit at their desktop and actually consume that. But that's, again, a different picture. So if your content is really good, and in the earlier session we were talking about the need to have really, really good content in order to stand out, there is definitely acceptance for that, and there's a way to push it out. There's also a move towards multi-screening, and this is where, I'll just go back to that, this is where there is an opportunity for brands or businesses to interact or to stem from, say, television viewing, because now people have only 50% of their attention on the television, and the other 50% is communicating about what they're watching. But that's an opportunity that you can get into, and it's, again, something that's being driven by mobile. I don't have time to show you tons and tons of stats, and I don't think you want to see that. But if you look at any of the big brands, you'll see that their internet traffic figures have really changed in the last few years in an incredible way. So they see mobile really, really, really high during the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour. And actually, on the train here this morning, every single person in front of me was on their phone doing something. They were communicating, reading the news. That's actually how people are consuming content now. This is the new TV. People are watching. This is the new living room. So people are consuming content on trains, on buses, and as they're traveling. And this is actually an opportunity to engage and inspire them. It's not just when they get back and they sit with their partner and they talk about their day. Some of us are quite busy and don't really have time for that. So this is changing. And you'll also see that over the weekends, tablet use is very, very high. And the space for desktop is really 9 to 5 in the office space when people are trying to avoid doing their core job and just looking at other travel sites and dreaming about how to get away from the job. So you really have new trends and new opportunities. But the big change that's driving all of that is mobile. So we thought we would pull up. I asked our colleague to find some big numbers because I think big numbers always help demonstrate something important. And she came up with the term trendjacking, and I thought this was quite good. I like this term, and it's used a fair amount. Effectively jumping on a trend and capitalizing it for your own marketing needs. Has anybody in the room, just put up your hand if you've done, if any of you have ever made a Twitter ad? Nobody? That's incredible. Okay, so for example, Twitter is a very instant form of communication. And when things happen, people talk about it on Twitter. That happens during conferences, for example. So that is an opportunity that a really smart brand can get on top of. And I'm just going to show you some examples of that. We all know what this is going to be about, the Brazil World Cup. 280 million online interactions. This is a phenomenal number. It's whenever we have an event like this number gets bigger and bigger. So probably I'll come back in 4 years' time or something, and that will be 10 times that number. People are communicating in bigger and bigger quantities. There's more data being transferred than ever before. And the difference is it's all happening live. The London Olympics, I think, it's safe to say, and Ramona looked at some numbers on this, was quite a turning point in terms of instant communication online. And the key point here, the highest point where communication took place was in 1 minute, 580,000 tweets. It was that very famous Germany-Brazil match. I'm not a fan of football, but I was seeing everything happening on Twitter, and I actually switched on the TV because I wanted to see for myself the annihilation of Brazil. I'm very sorry if there's anyone from Brazil in the room. But this shows how people really jump on things. And they're not sitting at their desktop computers preparing their tweets. They're all doing it through mobile. So if you are smart and you think that that number represents an interesting opportunity, then you probably want to think, is there a way that we can push a message out into that, or we can drive people from that into our mobile site? That's important to say. So opportunity is all about timing. I think we've seen a couple of good examples this morning where Mark Henry from Tourism Ireland showed how they've jumped on to, say, the Game of Thrones, huge global TV series hit. They've recognized that given that most of it was filmed in Northern Ireland, that's an opportunity for them, and they can actually take advantage of that. What I'm talking about here today is the opportunity of now and the instant opportunity that you have. Does everyone know this? Yeah? Okay. Famous bite. I didn't actually think it was so gruesome, but there you go. What people started talking about this in a really, really, really big way. A 10,000% increase in 24 hours of people using the hashtag Suarez. So people didn't really care that much about Suarez until then. And then when that happened, that's the only thing anybody was talking about. And unfortunately, not a travel industry example, but I think a really good example. Snickers, they sent a little message for Suarez that next time he should consider Snickers, biting into a Snickers, next time he's hungry. So I think the message is good. They actually promoted this, and they really jumped right into the middle of that conversation and made people laugh. And I think this is also the sort of humor that also gets shared in a really good and funny way. So I think this was just a great example of how a brand can do this trendjacking, how they can jump onto something very, very big. I have to check. I have to make sure there's a few people not here. So please tell me there's nobody from KLM in the room. If you are, you'll have to come to the stage. Okay, good. So next up is KLM. KLM, I think most of you know, are very, very famous throughout the travel industry for being really good at social media. This is what they tell everybody, and this is what all the social media agencies, PR people, speakers, marketing people, they say, look at KLM, they're the best. Personally, I completely disagree from my own personal experience as well. They have the policy that they will reply to any tweet within the hour, and they help all of their customers who are in need of help. So you can see where I'm going with this. I was stranded and they didn't help me and they didn't reply within an hour. So if you make a promise like that in social media, you better make sure you live up to it, because 2 hours to say, sorry, Nick, can't help you is definitely not good. And I promised I would talk about that. But I'm going to go further, and I'm going to show a case study of something a bit bigger. And don't forget, all of these things, most people are looking on mobile. That's the only reason that Twitter has been so successful, is because of mobile, and they saw that very early on. So they decided to celebrate Mexico's departure from the World Cup by putting a departures picture and saying, adios, amigos. I guess they thought they were funny. I guess out of the 180 social media staff that they employ, something like that, I guess they all sat together in a team meeting and thought, this would be really, really funny. We'll make everybody laugh. But, and I can't repeat what's coming up next in my home country because we're British and we're all very polite, but it didn't go down so well. So you'll just have to read this. Just a very influential person saying, at KLM, I'm never flying on your airline again. Cue big time. So I didn't really go down very well. And this guy is also pretty influential. And that's not the kind of message that you want people sharing and talking about. And people are very, very passionate and patriotic about where they come from. So you will actually have, as a result of that, a lot of people saying, I'm not flying with KLM. If someone's coming from Mexico to anywhere in the world because they're a global airline, they may actually say, well, I don't want to go with them after that. So it's a very, very bad thing to make such a small but quite significant mistake. What's really good here is that another competitor thought, well, that's a good opportunity. They've really screwed up this time. And they thought they would jump onto that. So Aeromexico, I have to say, not an airline I've flown on. Probably most of you, unless you went to Mexico, haven't flown on them either. Decided to welcome everybody who'd abandoned KLM with an arrivals picture. So really playing with the humor and with the action that's happening then and saying, hey, this is actually quite a good opportunity for us, and making a good campaign out of it. I would argue that that's much smarter, especially as a smaller business, to jump onto something like that. So there is opportunity, and you can seize on it, and you can also seize on your competitors as well. And this is all happening in mobile. So moving on, going from that early inspiration stage, let's look at the planning stage and look at how things are changing there again. Now, I love statistics. I love presenting statistics because we don't produce these. We analyze everyone else's statistics. So we're in a good position of not taking accountability for the statistics. We just share with you what we found. And this is according to a recent Forrester report on mobile commerce. So actually very credible. But the only thing is it was commissioned a year ago. And of course, it's probably out of date. But this is just showing their predictions up to 2017 for the increase in mobile commerce spend. This is really impressive. But what I have a strong feeling is that this is not accurate. I think these numbers are going to be much, much, much higher. And there's a good reason for that. Because when they produced this report, this didn't exist. And this changes everything. Because from next year, Apple Pay will really change what mobile commerce means to everybody, including small businesses. Does everybody understand? That's probably a bit of an open question, so I will just tell you. So does everybody understand how important something like this is for your business? I think probably not. I will tell you at the very end about the Smart Lab series we're doing, but we're doing a session on mobile payment. But something as simple as this will change everything, because most of you who think yourselves as consumers first will think, well, Apple Pay is about surely going into a shop and tapping my phone and doing a contactless payment, which is great, and it's a convenience factor. But most people, and surprisingly most marketeers, don't understand that it's much, much more than that. Apple Pay is about website payments. It's about your business. It's about, if you run an attraction, it's about being able to sell a ticket to your attraction while someone is on their way to it. And at the moment, it's very difficult. There are some really, really good examples of businesses which have great sites, very well mobile optimized, driving good number of bookings, but it's still very difficult. What this does is effectively take out all of those payment screens and just allow people to say, pay with Apple Pay, one tap of their fingerprint, and then they've paid for it. And that was the barrier to mobile commerce and mobile booking before, because it's just too fiddly, it's too long. You have to get your card out, you have to balance it on your knee because you're on a train, and then you have to somehow put it in, and then you hit the error page or verified by Visa, and nothing goes through, and you just give up. Because that's what everybody does. But this will change everything, because it will be one tap and you've paid. So if you're a small business, I think this is also a really good opportunity, and also if you're a big business as well. So really look at that. Look into how you can be one of the first, because if you are, you'll probably be very successful and really lead the way. What companies like Starbucks have told us is that if you're first, and if you provide a solution like this, which is quite innovative, customers will absolutely love it, and they will spend more money. Starbucks is considered to be the world's second largest bank because of what they've done with mobile. They store more money than almost all the other banks in the world, because people put money onto their Starbucks account as credit, and they hold it, and then they pay for things as they go. So people are really loving mobile payments. It's something that's new and exciting, and people will spend money just because they can and because it's fun. And that's also an opportunity that you probably don't want to miss out on. Also, looking at variations in mobile, when it comes to booking, what we've seen is that airlines take actually a very different approach to most of the rest of the business. And there's something really important to learn from here. Most of us, when we talk about mobile, we say, okay, I have to have a responsive site. And I would say from our own benchmarking, what's the number of, let's just give an example for tourist boards. Roughly what percentage did we find had mobile sites?
I think it was about 10 out of 22 were actually fully into mobile, but out of those 10, most were actually doing relatively bad and weren't actually following any sort of best practice examples or recommendations. Very, very often the user experience was quite poor. So I think definitely from a destination perspective, there's really still a lot of work that needs to be done. And we looked specifically at sort of European national tourism organizations in that benchmark.
So yeah, approximately half are mobile optimized when it comes to tourist boards. That's just incredible. I remember we did this a year before that benchmark, and it was only 30%. So that number is increasing very, very slowly. But for businesses that are doing a good job, the airlines are doing a great job, all but Alitalia, I have to say. Personal experience of that too. And what we can see is that 76% of those sites are not mobile responsive sites. They're completely dedicated mobile sites. And there's really good reasons for that. And it's important to understand the difference. So a mobile website is a website that's built for mobile. It's been designed for mobile. And a responsive site resizes your content to a certain extent. And there are various in-betweens there. But that's on a general level. And what we know from airlines is that they have very, very specific goals and needs for their customers and also for the airline that they want to achieve in the mobile site. So it's not the same as just resizing your desktop site. There are very specific things. Making a booking on the spot while you're on your way, or you need to make a travel booking, and also checking in and getting boarding passes. There's some very key things which they decided to, rather than take a responsive approach, completely build a mobile approach, mobile-only approach. So it's important to understand what they're doing and how you need to think about it in terms of taking a clear, iterative approach of going through that in different stages. According to Expedia, 65% of bookings made in the last 24 hours before a trip were actually booked on mobile. That's a really high number. And we actually have tomorrow, I'm very pleased to say, on the tech stage at 10 o'clock, so be there bright and early, we have HotelTonight, who will be joining us and sharing us what they've done. HotelTonight, I really have a lot of respect for them because they have built a mobile-only business model because nobody else was providing or jumping on the opportunity. They decided to build a business which is about selling hotel rooms on mobile on the day when you're traveling. Very, very simple, but they realized that that statistic means something and it means an opportunity as a business. So we are really pleased to be hearing from them tomorrow and getting them to share with us their approach. Then we see en route that maps are really, really important. You all know the importance of maps, but that also is the case in mobile websites. Sometimes that might be something very simple, such as giving people directions to your business. But there are so many things you can pre-configure in a mobile website, and actually it's a very good strategy to see how you can really get the most out of the maps experience. There are also really bad examples when it comes to mapping. We see a lot of tourist boards using their country's national mapping service because they sort of have to politically. And often this is a complete disaster from a user experience point of view because people like Google, they develop and they really, really develop their product. So it's something that people are A, familiar with, and B, is consistent and works really well. So sticking in a sort of zoomable map that they found from a different system is just not going to work. So it's important that that user experience when it comes to maps makes sense, and it's relative to the context of the visitor. So some things you can do as a business, for example, is preload directions, so they can actually choose to get directions from another app. It can be Apple Maps or Google Maps, and that will load up and actually take them out of the web page and into the app, and then they can get to your business really easily. It's also important if you are trying to show what's in the surroundings to actually show where the visitor is on the map and tap into their location and make sure everything is contextualized. I would say beyond everything else, and this is just a few screenshots of a trip I made last year to Copenhagen, beyond everything else, just thinking about how mobile can support your visitor. This is the most important thing before your goals. Thinking about how it can improve their travel experiences. And you have to accept how people use mobile and take a very focused approach. So this is an example of a trip. I used about 10 or 15 different apps in that trip, and that trip was less than 24 hours. Because these are the different apps I'm familiar with. So if you're building for mobile or thinking about your mobile strategy, think about what your customers need, what apps they are going to prefer to use over yours, and where you can add value in that process. Actually, your result will probably be that if we do something really simple but really, really effective, it's going to be a much better approach than trying to do everything. We are sort of guilty of it ourselves as well. When we first started thinking about how we will approach mobile, and we're still in that process, we were looking at how can we throw in everything into that. But in the end, it doesn't make any sense because that's not what's right for your customers, and you have to think about your customers first. So think about making sure they serve a real function and they improve their experience and interaction with your business. Now, in the destination, there's some really good opportunities here. Some big, impressive numbers here. 83% of people who have been surveyed in a recent report said they wanted access to amenities and hours, and they were happy to give away some of their personal privacy for that experience. So your customers will hand over a certain amount of data if they're very clear about the contract they have with you, and that in return they're going to get a better experience. The one I love, automated check-in, I think we're going to be seeing some of that in the next year or two. And also concierge services. We recently heard from a company called Inspire, which provide in-room entertainment and in-room ordering through mobile. Very good opportunities there for upselling and actually commercial opportunities for making more money out of your existing products. A good example of upsell is Viator. I think most of you are probably familiar with Viator. Have a look at their mobile app. It's really, really well designed. And basically, they allow you to buy a tour in 2 or 3 taps. What they've done is removed all the hurdles and made it a very simple, straightforward process. But we're going to see more and more opportunities for selling things on the go being built into different solutions. I think probably one good example would be TripAdvisor. They've now integrated La Fourchette for table bookings. They've integrated Uber to help you get a ride when you need to get from A to B, and lots of things like this. So they've really looked at it and thought, how can we integrate things which improve our customers' lives and also a good upsell opportunities. I love this because I love the future. And this is IBeacons. Is anyone here experimenting or used IBeacons? Oh, okay. I would like to hear your experience on that. So here, for those of you who don't, it's basically Bluetooth, but the 4.0 version. And it allows you to push information to different devices that have given permission for them to do that. And that can be all sorts of information. That can drive sales. It can also help you to provide a higher level of customer service by knowing where your customers are. The crucial thing is that it knows the proximity of that device to the receiver. So if you have an iBeacon like this on a wall, you know exactly when someone passes through it. So if you think about an airline, an airport lounge, for example, if you put iBeacon by the door and then you enable the app to detect or to link with it, then when your customers walk through into the airline lounge, they can be greeted on a first name basis and actually not have to take out their card and show it. That is a really high level of customer service, and that is something that's going to leave you with very, very happy customers. That could go very far or it could be very narrow, but that's just an example. We haven't seen that yet, so that one's free if you're an airline. Also, simple things like if you want people to engage with this new technology, if you want people to connect on things like this, it's important to have Wi-Fi. It's so, so simple. But as Ramona was saying about the Czech experience on the train, that took us by surprise. It was a very pleasant surprise. But if you enable your customers to share, they will share. Make it easy. Don't have 5 login screens because that's not going to work, is it? Enable your visitors to share. And think especially about where it's most difficult to share. So this is an example of Barcelona. They've Wi-Fi enabled the whole beach. That's really impressive. There are also good examples, such as a castle in Ireland, which is very, very hard to reach, has very poor mobile phone connectivity, and Wi-Fi actually serves to enable people to get online who are even domestic travelers, who have data, but they have a really poor connection. So it's also about connecting everything in your business. When it comes to post-trip, this is a photo that our colleague took of people socializing. So this is what socializing looks like today. We're all socializing through mobile, and we're not really talking to each other. So it's a very sad state of affairs, but unfortunately it's the truth. And every time I go into a pub or a bar, I was in a restaurant just 2 days ago, and I saw two people sitting face to face, typing like crazy. And I was actually looking to see, are they typing to each other, or do they just not want to talk to each other, or what? It's crazy, but it's happening all the time. So this is how people share their experiences. And we really have to get our heads around that and stop being shocked by it. So all of that leaves us to rethink the travel cycle. And I think before we move on to the research that we have done on the digital natives, how much time do we have?
5 minutes.
We won't have time to share that with you. So you'll have to ask us and we'll give you the research. But I think the last thing to say here is that it's really important to innovate in your business. IBeacons are a great thing, and it's nice to see so many different people using IBeacons. It's really, really important. This is just a photo that I dug up, which was of an organization called MLabs in South Africa. And they decided to hold a hackathon in an airport hangar. That's a great idea. And a hackathon is a very simple thing. You get a whole load of developers together in a room, and you ask them to create solutions for your industry or for your business. So a good travel example is Vueling. They created a hackathon in Barcelona, and they had lots of interesting solutions coming out of that. We will actually have our own hackathon at the Digital Tourism Innovation Campus in 2 weeks' time. We're doing it with T-News, and we've got 100 or so developers who are going to be typing away, hacking away, creating all sorts of solutions, and we're really curious to see what comes out of that. Probably not finished products, but certainly interesting examples of where you could go with things. So I think on that note, I'm going to say thank you. I'm also going to put on the screen here 2 examples in just a second. We have 2 offers. We have 30% off if you're a destination and you would like to come to our innovation campus. That's valid until the end of this week. And we also have 30% off our subscriptions if you're a business and you'd like to join our Smart Lab. So I'm going to put those up in a second, but that leaves me to say thank you very much, and thanks as well to Ramona. So thanks for coming.